What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and if you are new to the PikaPikaPaPa channel, I take a lot of pride in the fact that I have Excel sheets and Excel sheets and Excel sheets of Pokemon data. Like, I warehouse, booster box prices, elite trainer box prices, PC ETB prices, single prices galore, and I do all of that so that I can bring you what I hope is some valuable content. Like, I believe in doing some data analysis and trend analysis, and I'm a big believer in seeing how products have performed in the past to give us some idea of what they might do in the future. Now, in this video, we're going to be looking specifically at booster box prices in the Sword and Shield era over the last 2 years, and this is what it looks like. So what we're going to do with all of this information, you don't have to drill down on this, we're going to look at it individually throughout the course of this video. But what we're going to do is we're going to put this into a forecasting tool, right? So we're going to put all of these individual month booster box prices, and we're going to put it in this forecasting tool, and what it's going to give us is something that looks just like this. Now, how cool is that, all right? So the blue line represents where the booster box price has been at the end of all of these months, and you'll see this goes all the way back to August 22 because this is Silver Tempest, but the sets that were out for at least 2 years, we go all the way back to January of 22 as well. So it shows you how the prices have kind of ebbed and flowed over time. And then when you get to the far right, it gives you that orange line. So the top one is what's called the upper confidence bound. So when it's giving you a price forecast that says, hey, listen, it might go up, it might outperform, but this is about as high as we think it's going to go, right? Then it gives you a lower confidence bound and it says, hey, listen, it might come down. And if it goes down, this is about as far as the math thinks it'll go down. Then it gives you that orange line in the middle, which is the actual forecast itself. It says, forget the up, forget the low. This is where we actually think this is going to end up. And the cool thing about this is because this is January of 2024, it is going to be using the trends from January, February, March of 2022, the trends from January, February, March of 2023. It's going to be using the recent trends in the booster box prices, and it's going to compile all of that together and give us this really cool orange line, which I'm so freaking excited to show you it because I just think that there's all kinds of awesomeness in it. And one of the other thing that's really cool here in the Sword and Shield space is, this is the 4th time that we've pulled this together. So we've done this 36 total times thus far, right? 12 sets times 3 is 36 times. And 94% of the time, almost every single time, the final booster box price for the projection has ended up higher than that lower confidence bound. And 61% of the time, it has actually been above forecast, which, believe it or not, when you compare it to Sun and Moon, and tomorrow I'm doing the same video for Sun and Sun and Moon is absolutely lights out. So if you enjoy this, you're going to love Sun and Moon. But Sun and Moon has been hitting that forecast number even stronger at an 80% rate. And that just goes to tell me, Sword and Shield, we started this 2 years ago, right? The prices have really been fluctuating. You're going to see that in these earlier sets like Silver Tempest and Lost Origin. But this is more accurate as these sets get older and older and as they age more. What's really exciting for me is as we get a couple more years into this, when Scarlet and Violet starts to get to a maturing point, it'll be interesting to look at some of the patterns from Sword and Shield to lay it into into Scarlet and Violet. So that's what I'm really excited about. Now, I will say this, listen, all these prices come from TCG Player, so if you don't like the prices, don't hate the player, hate TCG Player. And I do use a forecasting tool that is in Microsoft Excel. This is not, PikaPikaPapa's, back of napkin math. So again, this just is all stuff coming from other places. I just compile it for you and put it in front of you and try and give you some kind of read on it, and I have a ton of fun with it. So listen, with that being said, if this kind of data stuff excites you, if you're pumped to see the Sun and Moon version and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, hit the subscribe button. We do fun stuff like this all the time. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. Questions or comments, drop them down below. Those 3 small things go a long way in helping my small channel out, and I am so freaking excited to get into this right now. Now, you've already seen the graph for Silver Tempest, so I thought this would be a great way to show you the graph early and kind of explain what all of this means, okay? So I've got some little, notes there on the side, but what I really want you guys to look at is just kind of how the prices have moved over time and really look at where those orange lines go. Now, as I said, these newer sets like Silver Tempest, there's just not enough data to get anything to the math. So the math is basically giving this really wide spread, and it's saying, I don't know what the heck's going to happen. Now, when you look down there, you see in the green bar, the big bold one, it says actual 131. So at the end of December, the actual price of the Silver Tempest booster boxes was $131, right? Then right above that one, you see the orange box where that was the actual forecast. So the forecast was $133.69. So it missed forecast, but it was pretty darn close to forecast, right? And then in the red above that, you see that was the lower bound. It said it could go as low as $93. Again, these are going to be really wide for these early sets. And then it said it could go as high as $73. So I mean, you really got to take this with a grain of salt. But then in the box down below, now I've done this a lot and you guys have given me a lot of good feedback that you want this to be easier to read and easier and more digestible. So I put a box down below on these future price projections. So in the orange right there, it is basically giving the exact same projection it did last time. It is saying that by the end of March 2024, the math is suggesting Silver Tempest booster boxes are going to be at $133. Now, the lower confidence bound is down to 86. The upper confidence bound is up to 179. The reason I kicked it off with this one is because, listen, all of that is a bunch of nonsense, right? It's going to probably end up in the $130 range. And as you'll see, as we get to sets that are a little older, that are a little more mature, this will start to make more sense. With Silver Tempest, take it with a grain of salt. I think it's going to be right around $130. Now, the next one here is Lost Origin. And what I love about these ones, look at how it spiked, right? Right before the reprint, I mean, this thing was taken off like a scalded rabbit all the way up to $180, right? Then it came down, and now it's starting to spike up a little bit. But again, remember, according to the math, this is still a relatively new set. So again, you got these really wide gap there at the end. It's saying, hey, listen, the upper confidence bound could go as high as $182. The lower confidence bound is at $111. And the actual forecast that the math is saying is $146. Now, you will see in the section above that the math had it forecasted at $147 for where we're at right now. And it finished $141. You are going to see that a lot of these are missing the forecast for this Q4. Like, that just, we haven't seen that in the past, but there's this old saying in investing, like, everybody's a genius in a bull market, right? And we all know that the Pokemon market was really, really hot for a long time. So it was hard for any of this to be wrong. Like, these just kept beating forecast and kept beating confidence bounds. But I'm excited that the market's correcting a little bit because we need these data points again for year 3, 4, 5 of PikaPikaPaPa. It's going to be really interesting to see how all these flow through. Now, after Lost Origin, obviously we're getting into Astro Radiance, and it's really cool for me to look at how these prices have fluctuated. And then for me, like the graph, they say a picture says 1,000 words, and I just could not be more, this just couldn't amplify that anymore for me. So really, to me, when I was looking at this, I didn't realize that Astro Radiance's booster box has been pretty flat since January. I mean, it had a little spike there, but then it's come back down, and then when you look at, again, really, really wide kind of cone of uncertainty, if you will. Now, the math was really favorable for Astral Radiance coming into the end of Q4, right? Because it was just projecting off of that big spike, that big tick up in August and September, remember, because that's the end of a quarter. Now, what happened? It actually came down and flattened out because that was when the market started to really soften. So the projection for this was $159, coming in at $121. The new forecast for this is $130, which is probably, you know, we've seen a lot of these sets that are flat, so that could actually be a really good forecast. Now, to the downside, it's saying it could go as low as $100. To the upside, it could say go as high as $160. And again, all of that is nonsense. We're going to start getting into some sets where the math starts to actually catch up, because you'll see in the very beginning, in February of 2022, you know, when this came out, you'll see that it started high and then it came all the way down. And remember, the math is looking at how similar months in the past have performed plus current trends. So that's why we're getting these really funky numbers here from Astro Radiance. And I promise you, if you watch the Sun and Moon video, like, it's totally different because Sun and Moon didn't go through any of these type of price undulations. Now, Brilliant Stars. I was extremely excited to see Brilliant Stars here. You know, a lot of us are excited. I think Brilliant Stars is going to be a great set. Obviously, you got the Charizard, you got the Rainbow, you got the alt art. Like, there's trainer galleries. There's all kinds of things to love about Brilliant Stars. And the math really, really loved Brilliant Stars last time we did this. It gave it a forecast of $169.52. It came in well below that at $153, but it did beat the lower confidence bound. Now, the upper confidence bound before was all the way up to $200, which was way too aggressive. But I do think that once this comes to sell out on the Pokemon Center, like, this set is going to do good. It's destined for greatness. I think it might, you know, still spend some time in the 140 range, 150 range. But I do think that in the long run, this set's going to do really, really well. Now, the new forecast is $155. The new lower confidence bound is $124, and the new upper confidence bound is $185. Now, one of the things you'll hear me talking about as we get deeper into this video is you'll see that the upper and lower confidence bound, the upper confidence bound says it could go up 21%. The lower confidence bound says it could go down 19%. When I see numbers like that, that's basically telling me the math is really unsure, right? It's almost as much to the up as it is to the down. Again, when we get into this further in this video, you're going to start to see that tighten up a bit, and you'll start to see it favor the upside or favor the downside. And in Sun and Moon, it is awesome to watch how some of this plays out. Now, getting past Brilliant Stars, we have Fusion Strike right here. I absolutely love Fusion Strike. And just like I said a minute ago, the new forecast, look at that. It is angled up and to the right, right? A lot of us are really bullish on Fusion Strike, and it's awesome to see the math kind of represent that here. Now, It did miss the most recent forecast. It had it forecasted at $158 and it came in at $146. Again, you know, the forecast was going off when booster boxes were really at their peak. Now things have started to cool down a little bit, but it did beat the lower confidence bound. Now the new forecast right here, look at that. Look at what I was talking about. Like the lower confidence bound is -4%. The upper confidence bound is positive 17%. So that's telling you the math. Yeah, it's saying, hey, it could go down a little bit, but it's really favoring the upside here. Now, the actual forecast itself is $155. As we start to look at some of these sets and these booster boxes that are available on the Pokemon Center, like it's going to be hard for any of them to get up above the price that's on the Pokemon Center, even though not everybody in the world has access to it. A lot of people do, so it really is hard for these booster boxes to break out when things are still in stock on the Pokemon Center website. But I was interested and very excited to see that Fusion Strike has this really awesome, I would call this bullish sentiment over the next 3 months, because we all love Fusion Strike, and I think this actually feels right to all of us when we sit back and think about it. Now, the next one right here is Evolving Skies, and again, I have done this 36 times before. I don't think I've ever seen the math love a set quite as much as it loves Evolving Skies right now. Now, the problem is the last time we did this forecast, it really loved Evolving Skies too. It did not take into account that it was going to be flat because it has all of these data points, you know, from the last 2 years where it's just on this upward and the right trajectory. And what happened? It's been flat for the last 5 months. So it had a forecast at about $492 and a lower confidence bound of 421. And this is the only one we'll see where it missed everything. It missed forecast, it missed lower confidence bound. I mean, the math just had no clue that Evolving Skies was going to kind of stall out here for a little bit. So came in at $412, but the math is like, listen, I don't care what you say. I'm still a big believer in this, and the forecast is at $498, which is not going to happen, right? Like this thing isn't going to pop to $500 in the next 3 months. But what is exciting for me and what gives me a lot of confidence is when you look at the lower confidence bound there in the box at the bottom, right? Like that's usually a red color, right? I've colored it in red every single other slide and every one you'll see from here on out. But the lower confidence bound is actually positive, and that's the math saying, listen, we don't care what happens. We think this booster box is going to gain and accelerate in price over the next 3 months. Is it going to happen? I don't know, but it is interesting to see that the math is so favorable here. And again, upper confidence bound is absolutely Looney Tunes. This isn't getting to $555. And this is a great example of how, as we get into, you know, month number 30, month number 36, month number 48, you know, this math is going to start making a lot more sense. But it sure is a ton of fun to talk about now. And I always feel really, really good. Like I make a lot of buying decisions off of the directions that the math is pointing in. And you know, I love Evolving Skies. You know, I love Fusion Strike. So those are sets that this just really makes me feel good because, you know, I'm spending some polka dollars on them. Now, the next one right here is Chilling Reign, another set that you know that I'm super bullish on right now. It had a forecast for $166. It finished at $151. It did beat that lower confidence bound, but did not beat forecast. Now, the new forecast right now has readjusted itself, right? It's actually a lower forecast for the next 3 months than it was over the one we're at right now. It's forecasting it out to about $161 there. But again, you see that the math is favoring the upside, right? The lower confidence bound is -4%. The math is saying, hey, it could go low as $145, but the upside is plus 17%. So the math, again, is really favoring Chilling Reign to do well here. And it's been fat. This is another booster box where I just look at that blue graph and how it's trended over time. And it's really interesting to see that it was flat, flat, flat. Then it went through a couple month period of growth. And then it really has been flat for the last, I don't know, about a year at this point. So is Chilling Reign going to break out? We'll have to see. It's not available on the Pokemon Center. So if it ever is going to break out, you know, sooner rather than later, I think it's going to happen. If not, who knows? Maybe I've been wrong the whole time. I don't think so, but we shall see. But Chilling Reign is sold out on the Pokemon Center. So if it's ever going to break out, this would be about the time for it to do so. Now, Battle Styles right here. Another one that really caught me off guard. You know, I put this together over the last 2 days, and I've done a lot of videos over the last, 2 weeks actually. I've talked about things like Battle Styles and Vivid Voltage. And so when I put this together, I was really surprised, to be honest with you. I mean, I knew that I liked it, but when I see the math really favor it. So in the original forecast that we're up against right now, it forecasted $118. It came in well short of that, right? It's at $104 right now. It barely squeaked by. You know, it did beat the lower confidence bound, but that's certainly not something for us to celebrate. So again, the math again still is really bullish on this, right? The forecast is at $114. You'll see that the lower confidence bound is only -2%. The upper confidence bound is all the way up there at 22% positive, saying the box could get all the way up to $126. Like, we rarely see these get all the way up to the upper confidence bound. We almost never see them beat them, right? But the fact that it's so far in the positive, right? -2% versus positive 22% just tells me that the math is really, really, optimistic about Battle Styles, which is fascinating. fascinating to me. Now, you can look at how it's performed in January and February in 2022 on here, in 2023, and you'll see that in 2023, January, February, March, Battle Styles saw a bit of an uptick, so that's probably what the math is taking into consideration. But you all know that I think, hey, listen, we got alt arts in Battle Styles, like it's 2.5 years old. I'm not worried about it getting reprinted. I think picking this up for 105, 110 bucks, I think it's an absolute steal at this point. Is it going to make you rich? Probably not. But is it a great buy? Is it a great value? I absolutely think so. So getting to the next one right here is Vivid Voltage. And this one, again, you got to look back. Look at January, February, March of 2022, all the way on the left-hand side. See how it has that steep curve up, right? Then when you look at January, February, March of 2023, it was up a little bit and then flat. So when you look at the forecast, when you look at the way the math kind of modeled Vivid Voltage out, that's what it's taking into account, because again, this is another set that the math is really favorable for. And I don't know, like, I'm a huge fan of Vivid Voltage. I think it's a great time to pick it up, but I certainly don't know if over the next 3 months this thing's going to get in the $130, $140 range. But we shall see. That's why we do this. That's why we look back on it. But it certainly missed the last forecast. Last forecast was at $141, came in at $125, and it actually missed the lower confidence bound too. Don't see that very often. We've only seen that with Evolving Skies up till this point. So total miss on Vivid Voltage from the last forecast, but the new forecast has it at $135, and it's got a lower confidence bound of only -1% and an upper confidence bound of +17%. So just another example of where, hey, listen, for whatever reason, the math is all in on Vivid Voltage. Is it going to shape out? I don't know, but it sure is going to be a ton of fun for us to look at next video. Then Darkness Ablaze right here. Look at all the crazy price movements in Darkness Ablaze. Like, it's fascinating. They're really sharp ups and downs and tabletops and it's just interesting how this set has performed. Now, another one, it did beat the lower confidence bound, but it was up against the forecast of $153. Again, just remember, like, the Pokemon market was cruising along last time we did this. So fell short of the forecast, coming in at $142, a more modest forecast moving forward, which I feel good about, right? The forecast now is $147. You know, the lower confidence bound is -8%. The upper confidence bound is +15. So it's still slightly tilted towards the positive, but it is definitely protecting itself with that -8% in the lower confidence bound. This is the type of graph that I feel really good about Darkness Ablaze. I'm not sure if now's the time where we'll start seeing some small incremental gains just due to age, and it is a Charizard set, even though, you know, the Charizard's like 28 bucks, and even though there's not a lot of other good cards in the set, I do think at some point we're going to see it tick up simply because of its age and because it is a Charizard set, and I think people will want it in the sealed collection for the long run. So interesting. I kind of like this forecast, and we'll have to see where it shakes up. Now, Rebel Clash right here. Look at that graph on Rebel Clash. Like, what a smooth operator, huh? Not a lot of peaks, not a lot of valleys, just a really smooth price movement. Now, not a whole lot of gains, right? Like, it's almost flat over the last 2 years. I think it's up like 20 bucks, which isn't huge. I mean, it's up 10% over 2 years, which isn't bad at all. But another one, but this one actually beat the forecast. You didn't hear me say that at all in this video up until now. So the forecast for Rebel Clash in this period was $223, and it came in at $229. So beat the forecast, beat the lower confidence bound, obviously. Didn't get anywhere near the upper confidence bound, but look at how the math favored it last time we looked at it. Remember, we've seen this over the last couple sets, right? We've talked about how the math really favored it. Was -1% versus +17%. We saw -4% versus +17%, right? Now this one, last time we did this, it was -3%, +13%, and it ended up beating forecast, and it ended up doing okay. So again, I don't know what's going to happen, but I just see these trends. The more I do this, the more I dig into this data, it is fascinating to see how these trends shake out. Now, the new forecast right here is $233.99. Call it $234. I don't think that's a stretch, right? I think it could go up $4 or $5 here in the next couple months. And then the lower confidence bound is -5%. Upper confidence bound is +10%. So not quite as bullish as it was before, but I do think these are some numbers that we could see Rebel Clash absolutely hitting. And I think it's because the price movement has been so steady over the last 2 years that the math isn't getting too crazy with it. Now, getting into the final one right here, Sword and Shield. This is one where we've seen it go flat and then up and then flat. It's kind of like a tabletop here. But again, missed forecast, missed lower confidence bound, right? Like, we've only said that. This is the third time we've said it. Not a lot of sets did that out of these 12. So the forecast was a very robust $307, and the lower confidence bound was at $280, finished at $274. But again, now we've got the new forecast at 285, right? And we have the new lower confidence bound at -6%, the new upper confidence bound at +14%. Now remember, everything that I was just saying about Rebel Clash, we were like, oh, you know, it favored it to the upside. Well, guess what? It favored Sword and Shield to the upside last time too, and it didn't get there. So anyways, this is why we do this. This is why we have so much fun. This is why I'm going to continue to warehouse this data. And once this spreads out over 3, 4, 5 years, I think it's just going to be an absolute amazing tool in our tool belt. And I will say this, if you have made it all the way to the end, here's what I want to share with you guys. That listen, the overall feel here in Sword and Shield right now, we have more of a bullish than bearish feel, okay? And I think that's a good thing. Again, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not expecting the market to turn around, but the fact that there's the sentiment, the math is certainly feeling more bullish than bearish, that makes me feel good. Now, Evolving Skies, Battle Styles, Vivid Voltage, Chilling, and Fusion Strike were the most favored. We've talked a lot about those sets here on the channel. Like, you know that Evolving Skies, Chilling Rain, and Fusion Strikes are some positions that I want to grow in 2024. I've talked about Battle Styles and Vivid Voltage being some awesome opportunities now. They might not be something you want to have, you know, 50 cases of, but a couple boxes of it to round out the collection wouldn't be bad. And, you know, these forecasts are starting to seem a little more in line, right? I talked about how the Pokemon market was in this real strong bull run there for a while, and that made some of these forecasts get a little bit crazy. So I'm actually excited to see some forecasts being missed, some lower confidence bounds being missed. I think that's going to help us ring things in a little bit, and I think it's going to give us some really cool price projections moving forward. And then listen, as I always say, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is historically this has been incredibly accurate, you know? And if you liked this and you enjoyed it, all I've got to say is you will absolutely love the Sun and Moon view of this, because those are more mature sets, not quite as much price, you know, craziness up and down and all over the place. And it is a really fun data set. So I've got all that pulled together. I just got to shoot the video. And as always, if you made it to the end and you enjoyed it, we do stuff like this all the time. So if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Questions or comments, drop them down below. If you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up. I truly appreciate you more than I can put into words. I thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an awesome one. Thanks, everybody. Bye.